Hello to you. Authorities in Indonesia have now set a deadline of Friday to find any survivors of last week's earthquake and tsunami still trapped under rubble. After that, they believe there is little chance of finding survivors in the city of Palu and the surrounding region. At least 1,400 people are so far known to have died. Mariko Oi is right now with the BBC team in Palu. We can join her for the latest from the disaster zone.
That's right, Mike. As you mentioned, the deadline has now been set for Friday to look for any more survivors. And there are many areas that the authorities haven't managed to get to. I want to show you this shopping centre that we've been broadcasting from for several days now, Ramayana Plaza. And only yesterday they managed to get this massive crane in. Of course, it's been really hard to get food and water into this city, so you can imagine how hard it is to get that into this city. And yesterday evening, when they started the cleaning operation, we were here and immediately they found one body just around there. Of course, it was Friday evening at around 5 o'clock when the earthquake hit, so there are fears that many more people might have been trapped inside and possibly died. And of course, this wasn't just about the earthquake and of course the tsunami, which wiped out some of the villages along the coastline. There were also mudslides. Our correspondent Jonathan Head visited an area which was affected by them.
Even now, 5 days after the earthquake, the tsunamis and the mudslides, the damage wrought on this part of Indonesia still has the power to shock. Some buildings crumpled. Others were literally swallowed by mud. It was the mud that did for Petobo, a neighbourhood to the east of the city. Fields of rice shaken loose by the earthquake that poured down the hillside. It buried the mother and baby sister of Fiona, not yet 2 years old, who was pulled from the mud by her older brother. She's been cared for by her aunt.
She often asks, "Where's my mum? Where has my mother gone?" I tell her we're still looking for her, or I say your mother has gone on a long journey. If she hears a loud noise or a plane going overhead, she's scared. She's still traumatized.
Over here, it was even worse. A road and all the houses along it, obliterated by mud. Astonishingly, this cornfield has travelled more than a mile. And this mad jumble of wreckage is the remains of at least 2 villages. They scarcely know where to begin recovering the bodies of the victims. This was a Christian study centre. There were 200 students there when it was torn from its foundations. Just try to imagine the terrible force that uprooted these front pillars of the church and toppled them over, and that flattened this massive concrete roof here. And even now, they don't know how many victims may still be underneath. And all of this was dragged by the mudslide from right over there, behind those palm trees. One of the students was Martin's 17-year-old son, Gabriel Rian. He's already resigned himself to the near certainty of his death. Every parent hopes for a son, he said. Now I just want to recover his body for a proper burial in my hometown. The collective loss suffered by the people of this city is incalculable. Help is on the way now. It will be needed for a very long time. Jonathan Head, BBC News, Palu, Indonesia.
More than 70,000 people have been displaced as a result of the disaster, and thousands of them are now trying to leave the island, heading to the airport, which has been shut for commercial airlines until very recently. And the airport has become somewhat of a makeshift hospital. Howard Griffith reports from there.
They want a way out, but for many camped overnight at Palu's airport, there's no prospect of leaving. After the tsunami, thousands flocked here, hoping to be airlifted. But 5 days on, Rani and her family of 20 are still here, still waiting. She told me that they've felt the tremors continue. She's so worried another earthquake will come, she won't go inside the terminal in case it collapses. And you can see why. Inside, walls have fallen, the building has buckled. It may not look like it, but this airport is still just about able to function, despite bricks falling from the wall, broken glass, tangled metal over in the baggage hall. This is the only airport anywhere near the disaster zone, so it simply has to keep going. The airport has also become a makeshift hospital, using the medical aid that's been flown in. But there are reminders everywhere that the death toll is rising. In the middle of all this, commercial flights have resumed, check-in done by hand.
Most likely closes, but...
Terra has tickets for his whole family to leave, afraid that law and order in the city has broken down.
Even the government was being attacked, and when you were driving in the car you were constantly in fear living, because you don't really need what's going to happen next.
Aid for those who remain is now getting through. Tomorrow, shelter kits and solar lanterns will be flown from Britain. For many here, help can't come soon enough. Howell Griffith, BBC News at Palu Airport.
And let me show you a bit more of Ramayana Plaza, which has practically collapsed. We've been broadcasting from here every day now, and every time we come here, another part of the building has fallen apart. It is quite literally crumbling. But I want to show you this side of the street, because while this plaza has collapsed, other shops are actually doing quite okay. And the rest of the street is quite okay as well. And it really goes to show that while the earthquake obviously did quite a lot of damage, it was really the tsunami which killed those thousands of people. But I also want to emphasize that while we have been talking a lot about tragedies, there have been a lot of happy stories as well. A husband reuniting with a wife that he thought was dead, feeling that he fell in love with her all over again. And also the resilience of people has been remarkable. Now that people have started getting some food and water, they have even offered us some food, and they started selling them, and it really feels like the economy is back moving again. Mike.
Mariko, thank you very much indeed for that. Let's quickly